Welcome to Real Talk Grimm Edition. I'm Josh, your guide through the dark, twisted, and timeless world of Grimm's fairy tales. Each episode, I dive into an original Grimm story. No sugarcoating, no Disneyfying, just the raw, unfiltered tales as they were meant to be. But I don't stop there. After the story, I break it all down. The morals, the values, and what these old world lessons mean for us today. From the eerie to the enlightening, I'm trying to make these classics real and relevant. If you love storytelling with a twist of insight, be sure to like, subscribe, and join me on this journey through folklore, wisdom, and just a little bit of the unexpected. Now, let's step into the world of Grimm. Today, we're discussing the bird, the mouse, and the sausage. So grab your favorite drink, sit back, and enjoy the tale. Looking for chills that crawl up your spine and reviews that cut deeper than a butcher's blade? Welcome to Real Talk Horror Edition, where classic slashers, indie creepers, and cult nightmares are dissected with a bloody passion. Whether you're into slow burns or splatterfests, we've got the guts, the gore, and the geek out. So dim the lights, press play, and let your darkest curiosities run wild. Real Talk Horror Edition, where horror lives and breathes. Real horror, real talk. Available anywhere you get your podcasts. The Mouse, the Bird, and the Sausage. Once upon a time, a mouse, a bird, and a sausage formed a partnership. They kept house together, and for a long time they lived in peace and prosperity, acquiring many possessions. The bird's task was to fly into the forest every day to fetch wood. The mouse carried water, made the fire, and set the table. The sausage did the cooking. Whoever is too well off always wants to try something different. Thus, one day the bird chanced to meet another bird, who boasted to him of his own situation. This bird criticized him for working so hard while the other two enjoyed themselves at home. For after the mouse had made the fire and carried the water, she could sit in the parlor and rest until it was time for her to set the table. The sausage had only to stay by the pot watching the food cook. When mealtime approached, she would slither through the porridge or the vegetables, and thus everything was greased and salted and ready to eat. The bird would bring his load of wood home. They would eat their meal and then sleep soundly until the next morning. It was a great life. The next day, because of his friend's advice, the bird refused to go to the forest, saying that he had been their servant long enough. He was no longer going to be a fool for them. Everyone should try a different task for a change. The mouse and the sausage argued that but the bird was the master, and he insisted that they give it a try. The sausage was to fetch wood, the mouse became the cook, and the bird was to carry water. And what was the result? The sausage trudged off toward the forest. The bird made the fire, and the mouse put on the pot and waited for the sausage to return with wood for the next day. However, the sausage stayed out so long that the other two feared that something bad had happened. The bird flew off to see if he could find her. A short distance away, he came upon a dog that had seized the sausage as free booty and was making off with her. The bird complained bitterly to the dog about his brazen abduction, but he claimed that he had discovered forged letters on the sausage and that she would thus have to forfeit her life to him. Filled with sorrow, the bird carried the wood home by himself and told the mouse what he had seen and heard. They were very sad, but were determined to stay together and make the best of it. The bird set the table while the mouse prepared the food. She jumped into the pot, as the sausage had always done, in order to slither and weave in and about the vegetables and grease them. But before she reached the middle, her hair and skin were scalded off, and she perished. When the bird wanted to eat, no cook was there. Beside himself, he threw the wood this way and that, called out, looked everywhere, but no cook was to be found. Because of his carelessness, the scattered wood caught fire, and the entire house was soon aflame. The bird rushed to fetch water, but the bucket fell into the well, carrying him with it, and he drowned. Hey everyone, it's Josh from Real Talk, your go-to podcast for everything movies and television. Each week, my hetero life mate Dave and I break down what's hot, what's not, what totally melted our eyeballs. We're talking cult classics, blockbuster bombs, hidden gems, and the latest streaming shows everyone's binging. It's honest, it's unfiltered, and yeah, it gets a little weird sometimes. You can count on some Garrett Graham discussion. So if you love great stories, great laughs, and just a little chaos, search Real Talk wherever you get your podcasts, and let's get real. So that was The Mouse, the Bird, and the Sausage, a story that starts off like this whimsical fable about teamwork and domestic bliss, but ends in just, let's be honest, absolute disaster. So I want to acknowledge it up front. This is one of the weirder Grimm tales. I mean, a sentient sausage doing the cooking by sliding through the food? Sure, why not? We've got a bird gathering wood, a mouse building fire, and everybody seems happy. Until it all falls apart. Literally. The sausage get eaten. The mouse boils herself, and the bird burns the house down and drowns in a well. Absurd? Yeah, totally. But underneath that weirdness is a surprisingly sharp lesson that I think still hits today about comparison, ego, teamwork, and just how easy it is to ruin a good thing when we let doubt creep in. So let's break it down. If you boil this tale down to one message, it's this: don't fix what isn't broken. This is a cautionary tale about messing with a good system just because someone outside of it tells you it could be better. It's also about pride, about letting comparison ruin contentment, and about what happens when we assume someone else's role is easier than ours without understanding what they really do. In the story, the bird had a perfectly functional and fulfilling life. He brought in wood, he had loyal housemates, and everything ran like clockwork. But the moment another bird criticized him, suggesting he was being taken advantage of, he started to question it. And that's all it took. This one moment of doubt, one planted seed of envy, and the entire dynamic collapsed. So, yeah, don't fix what isn't broken, and maybe don't listen to shady advice from birds who don't live in your house. And then let's look at what's really going on here thematically. So, first, there's the danger of comparison, the classic grass is greener trap. The bird wasn't unhappy until he compared himself to someone else, and not even on his own. He was told to be unhappy. I mean, doesn't that sound familiar? This is the same thing that happens when you scroll through social media and start feeling bad about yourself, that you're not on a beach or getting promoted or baking the perfect rustic bread. It's curated envy. And once it gets in your head, it's really hard to unsee. The theme of the comparison, especially when it lacks context, can turn satisfaction and joy in your life into resentment overnight. And then it also has the themes of the importance of roles and structure. So let's talk about that household dynamic. I know that it's silly, a mouse, a bird, and a sausage, but the setup is actually kind of genius. Because you see, everybody has a job and they're all good at their job. The mouse handles fire and water. The bird hauls wood. The sausage seasons the food with her body, which I know, don't think too hard about. But here's the thing, their system works. It's weird, but it works. Then they decide to switch it up, and what happens? The sausage gets eaten by a dog. The mouse tries to imitate the sausage's cooking methods and literally dies in a pot. The bird panics, burns the house down, and drowns. So there's your plot summary, right? But more than that, this is a commentary on how delicate working systems can be and how each role, no matter how odd it looks from the outside, might be absolutely essential. So healthy relationships, workplaces, communities depend on everyone playing to their strengths. Shift the structure without understanding, and it can all come crashing down. And then there's the idea of ego and this illusion of inequality. The bird only thinks he's being mistreated after another bird suggested it. His ego gets inflated, and suddenly he's too good for the job he used to take pride in. And just like that, collaboration turns into competition. And here's the problem. He assumes the mouse and sausage are getting off easy. But the truth is, they're contributing in ways he doesn't fully understand. He thinks their work is simpler because he doesn't see all the details. He's blinded by assumption. Pride can warp our perspective and create these false narratives of unfairness where none existed to begin with. And then the idea of independence and fragility. This whole setup was a delicate balance. It didn't work because each individual was brilliant in their own right. It worked because they complemented each other. They relied on one another. And I think that's something we forget about a lot. Interdependence isn't weakness, that's strength. But the moment that trust is broken, the whole thing unravels really fast. In the end, in this case, everyone dies, not because they were unskilled or unlucky, but because that balance was disrupted and no one could quite recover. Teams, friendships, families, they don't survive on talent alone. They survive on trust and mutual respect. Now, let's talk about how this weird little fable connects to the world we live in now. And let's be honest, social media is basically that shady bird whispering in our ears 24/7. Why are you doing all the work while everyone else is living their best life? Look at that person. They're younger, richer, more successful. What are you doing wrong? And just like the bird in the story, we start doubting ourselves, start wondering if we're being played, even if we were perfectly content just moments before. Comparison isn't just the thief of joy, it's the wrecking ball of harmony. And I think the story also hits home in a professional setting. Not all roles look equally valuable, especially on the surface. But just because someone's job doesn't look hard doesn't mean it isn't critical. Maybe someone handles scheduling or organization or cleaning or emotional labor. Those roles can go unappreciated until they disappear. Then suddenly the whole system just begins to fall apart. And also worth mentioning, modern companies love this idea of switching roles for productivity. But when it's done without care or context, it can create burnout, confusion, and if you're in this fairy tale, fire, scalding death, and a watery grave. And I think the story also reminds us how easy it is to undervalue the skill of others. The mouse thought he could do the sausage's job. After all, how hard could it be? Just slide through the pot, right? Well, wrong. What we see as simple in someone else's work is often the result of practiced skill, knowledge, nuance. Just because something looks easy, it doesn't mean that it is. It's a reminder that mastery is not always visible. Roles exist for a reason, and assumptions can be very, very dangerous. Finally, I want to return to the bird. He wasn't being abused. He wasn't being taken for granted. But once that doubt entered his mind, he couldn't let it go. He couldn't stop seeing himself as a martyr. In today's world, that's the danger of outside noise. Opinions, advice, judgment, they're everywhere. But if we don't filter them, they can erode what's good in our lives. Relationships, jobs, partnerships, they all require maintenance, but they also require clarity. Ask yourself, am I really unhappy, or did someone just convince me that I should be? So, yeah, the mouse, the bird, and the sausage is this strange little tale, but it's not just some bizarre little fever dream about talking animals and mobile meat. It's a parable, a reminder. It reminds us that harmony often looks strange from the outside, but that doesn't mean it's broken. It tells us to value the roles others play, to resist the pull of ego and envy, and to protect the systems and people that are working well, even if they don't look impressive from the outside. It's also a little warning not to underestimate your sausage friends. They might just be the glue holding it all together. So, next time you're feeling restless or doubting your place or wondering if you're the only one pulling weight, pause, look around. Maybe the system isn't broken. Maybe someone's just whispering that it is. And maybe, just maybe, let the sausage stay out of the forest. And that's going to wrap up this episode of Real Talk Grimm Edition. I hope you enjoyed diving into this story and all of its deeper meanings as much as I did. If you like what you heard, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on our future episodes. And if you have thoughts on today's tale, whether you agree, you disagree, or you just have your own take, I want to hear from you. Reach out to me on social media. It's Real Talk on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky, or send me an email to therealrealtalk@gmail.com. Let me know what you think, or just say hi. And if you're enjoying the show, consider leaving me a rating or review. It lets me know that someone's getting something out of this, that you enjoy the Grimm Edition, and it really keeps the conversation going. And if you're looking for more, be sure to check out our other shows. There's Real Talk, the main channel where I break down films from all genres with an unfiltered discussion. And that includes Couch Critics in there, where Dave and I go deep into all things entertainment related and just great conversation and interviews even. Then there's Real Talk Horror Edition, where we explore the eerie, the unsettling, and the blood-curdling brilliance that is horror cinema. But as always, I want to thank you so much for listening. And until next time, stay curious, question those stories around you, and keep exploring the darker side of fairy tales. This episode is brought to you by Dubby Energy, the clean energy drink for people who want to ditch the jitters, the crash, and all the junk packed into traditional energy drinks. Whether you're powering through a late night editing session, grinding through that next level, or just need a boost without the sugar overload, Dubby has got your back. With no fillers, no dyes, and no BS, Dubby is formulated to give you focus and energy with ingredients you can actually pronounce. Our listeners get 10% off their order. Just head to www.dubby.gg and use the code REALTALK at checkout. That's DUBBY.GG. Promo code REALTALK, REALTALK, for 10% off. Fuel up, stay sharp, be legendary with Dubby.